And particularly with parenting, I mean, if you think about parental burnout versus maybe burnout from work stress, we can't switch off. We actually can't. We are, parents, that role is there the whole time. So it's a big one to then be struggling with and to take time to take rest from.
Yeah, you can't take leave in quite the same way as you can from your job.
Yeah.
You're listening to Parents You've Got This, the expert guide to parenthood, the complete guide to fertility, pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood. This podcast is proudly supported by Mistela, a natural origin skincare for babies and children, recommended by healthcare professionals. Mistela by Parents Side since 1950.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Expert Guide to Parenthood podcast. We're your hosts, Christy and Freya, and we love talking about all things parenthood. Today, we're going to be talking about something that occurs to many parents, and we don't really talk about it, but it's called parenting burnout. It's that feeling of complete and utter exhaustion and feeling like you just can't really go on anymore. But how do you tell if you've got parenting burnout or you're just exhausted from parenting in general?
And what do you do about it? So we've called in our psychologist expert, Dr Carrie Haywood. Now, Dr Carrie Haywood has her own private practice. She is the author of the Being Human book series, and she is mama of 3 and no doubt has had many of these feelings herself, as we all have. I think whether or not it's burnout or not, being a parent is exhausting. So Carrie, thank you so much for being here today and telling us all about the differences and what we can do about it.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
What is parenting burnout and how does it differ from feeling tired or exhausted?
Yeah, so it's probably almost the next stage of ongoing stress and exhaustion. So it's much more chronic and enduring, and you probably be able to differentiate between the two by recognising that nothing really seems to be helping. Even after a night's sleep or trying to rest, it doesn't seem to be alleviating.
So what are the signs and symptoms that we should be looking out for? Obviously, being tired's one of them, but what else?
So it's very similar to what we would see in a more depressive experience. So there is absolutely those levels of exhaustion that, as I said, don't seem to be alleviating, or we might be feeling so tired but still not able to fall asleep. Lack of motivation and energy and feeling like it's really hard to just get going, particularly in the mornings. Lack of joy and particularly for things that usually bring us joy is another big one. And we might also be having experiences of irritability and just those reactive behaviours that are happening, feeling out of control with that.
Why, you said there the morning, why is morning harder than night?
Mornings, typically we experience that overwhelm. Our mind is sort of, as soon as we wake up, often kicks in, starting to think about, anticipate all that we need to do. And there can be that sort of physiological response as well. As I said, if we're having what we feel is a decent night's sleep, but waking up still feeling exhausted, which is going to then impact our energy and our motivation to get going.
So burnout can have then, an impact not only on our mental health but also our physical health too. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So yeah, we will be feeling our body is very good at telling us and communicating and telling us what we need. And so yeah, those feelings of our mood and energy and those exhaustion levels are really indicating that we need to kind of do something different, to stop and change. There can be other experiences in our body as well. So sometimes people might even come out in a rash or experience certain types of pain, often back pain, neck pain. It can, again, our body communicating to us that it's exhausted. It's gone into, like, it's been taxed too much. Yeah.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because if you don't feel physically like you can do something, you can't get the energy from doing exercise, and that can then spiral into, I can't even go for a walk, or I can't even do exercise, and then you feel bad about yourself, and then you sort of goes into that sort of spiral a bit more.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's definitely the psychological reaction to that can then kick in, which makes us feel even worse.
Yeah. And so, Carrie, are you finding in today's lifestyle and the way that we parent today, parents are experiencing burnout more than ever?
I think there's a good chance that, yes, we probably are. We know that our lives are very fast-paced. They're very hectic. We are on pretty much all the time. if we're not asleep, although even when we're asleep, our subconscious is still doing something. And that's, technology obviously feeds into that as well, because we literally are on and accessible all the time. And, our response to that is to want to be on more as well, that we are finding it harder and harder to be still and to stop. So we are sort of craving more of that distraction and busyness, even though there's part of us that knows it's not working for us and loves the idea of having rest and to not be on the whole time. Yet we're getting quite sort of dependent on that. So yeah, technology is a big one. The way that we live our lives. I think as parents, we are more of a anxious generation of parents as well, because of those expectations and demands that have heightened, definitely.
It feels like as parents we need to play so many more roles than we used to need to play. Is that part of what's causing this too, just the need to be everything?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And yeah, particularly if we compare it to past generations, those stereotypical gender roles as well. So yeah, we do take a lot more on, and that's not a bad thing, because often what we're taking on is things that do matter to us and that we do ultimately want to be doing, but it does mean it's a lot. And particularly with parenting, I mean, if you think about parental burnout versus maybe burnout from work stress, we can't switch off. We actually can't. We are, parents, that role is there the whole time, so it's a big one to then be struggling with. And to take time to take rest from.
Yeah, you can't take leave in quite the same way as you can from your job.
Yeah.
And are there particular personality types or parenting styles that get burnout more than others?
Yeah, I think, definitely the personality type that is prone to more higher standards they put on self. So we're talking really about sort of perfectionism, a higher sort of control mode that might be very apparent in that personality, high achievers, doers. But I think maybe also individuals that might have a sort of tendency or susceptibility to whether it be anxiety or it depends on their history, I guess, as well. So if there have been other experiences and a past history of finding things particularly challenging, that will come into it, absolutely. Yeah. And people who maybe also don't necessarily prioritise themselves. Yeah.
Want some extra tips to help you navigate parenthood? Join a Parents You've Got This masterclass. Visit www.parentsyouvegotthis.com.au and sign up for a masterclass today.
I love that we're talking about burnout more and more, whether it's in the workplace or parental burnout. Do you notice differences or similarities between men and women that are struggling with burnout?
Probably differences, and those differences typically being what we see in other areas as well. And so, I think there can be, it depends, I guess, on the situation for the individual, with what's happening with their own work and professional lives, sort of the role and responsibilities they take on in the family and in the home as well. But again, personality coming into that too. So sort of default coping styles, and whether that is to be sort of more outward and reactive, or whether that is to withdraw and retreat. And so, yeah, there can be differences. And look, we probably see it in the primary caregiver a bit more, that parental burnout, definitely. But it can still absolutely, because a lot of it is the mental load as well that comes into it. So it's not necessarily about who's doing more and therefore feeling that responsibility more. It can be a little bit nuanced there too.
And do you find a particular stage more likely to have burnout? I don't know. I sort of felt like when I was first had children, I was almost on adrenaline, like getting up, having to do it all. And then sometimes then when you slow down a little bit more, or the duration of time that you feel like you're having to parent, like, do you find a stage more likely to get parental burnout?
I don't know if it's universal. I think, again, it probably is quite situational with what's happening for an individual, with the family, with the kids, with their own, again, professional lives, maybe even with their own family of origin as well. And so what I am seeing actually a lot of is particularly women who have ageing parents.
Yeah, that sandwich sort of generation, looking after younger ones and their parents.
That's right. Yeah. And then, huge juggle with all of that. So that can definitely be a stage. But again, it just depends on the situation and what's happening in their own lives. Yeah.
So if someone feels like they might be experiencing burnout, what can they do about it?
Identify, it's probably first, and then talk about it, ideally with partner. If there is a partner, ideally with friends, your own support network, and then definitely a professional. So a good place always in these situations is to start with a GP. If you've got a good relationship with a GP, and then any other professional help. Look, professional help's not necessarily required, but I think with something like burnout, it's hard to know where to start. So often having that guidance is really helpful, because really what we want to address first with burnout is coming back and prioritising our basic needs. We actually need to just come back and peel everything else away and get that happening again first. So we're really talking there about trying to prioritise rest and sleep. Obviously being aware of our food and water intake, and exercise being another big one, and then social support. So we really want to focus on that. And as I said, having some guidance around how to do that can be really helpful.
You said earlier, how parents just can't rest, so that's a big hard one, trying to rest if you've got children all the time. How do you sort of carve out some time for that? How long does burnout take to recover from?
Yeah, look, again, it's really individual, and you're absolutely right, because that rest is really, really difficult, particularly if you've still got young children that are not necessarily sleeping super well themselves. So sleep is a funny one, because it's, almost one of the number ones for our mental health, but unfortunately it's just something we can't control or guarantee. So we talk more about creating the conditions for sleep and rest, and then hopefully sleep will take care of itself. But if we do have little ones, we are finding the time hard, then having some help to do that's really important. So even just trying to allocate and carve out, because this is like any behaviour change, if we're not really specifying exactly what we need to do and when and where and what that looks like, it just won't happen. So really, really, really specifying, okay, what's it going to look like today? Where can I get those extra pockets of rest and sleep? And as I said, then calling on partner or other family or friends to help with that if needed and if possible.
Yeah. So, Carrie, what would be your top tips for parents who, whether or not they're experiencing burnout, they might feel like they're just surviving? What would your tips be for them to help them get through the day?
So So it will, as I said, really come back to those basic needs, and even just seeing the smallness of that as quite big. So just making those small changes can be quite huge, because as human beings we are all or nothing by nature, so we very easily fall into, well, I don't have time to do my usual exercise or get a decent sleep or whatever. So what can I be doing at a small level, and seeing the value in that. And yeah, it's an interesting one, the surviving, because we do often feel like that's what we are, sort of running on that treadmill, or just sort of, treading water, just getting through the day. And that might be true to a degree, in the sense of we're not necessarily able to have the time or energy for other things that are the nice to haves, or what we would kind of otherwise want to be doing if I had more time. But maybe we are actually still having meaning and connection and things that matter to us in that surviving day more than we realise. So again, it's kind of a bit of a reframe of, well, maybe I am actually doing more. I am doing a better job at getting through this, and as I said, having those experiences around what matters to us more than I actually am giving myself credit for.
And even reframing it with the things that you are controlling,
Exactly.
No, but I chose that, I did that, I can make that little thing happen that then can shift the mindset.
And you're absolutely right. And also how we're showing up, which is a big one that I talk about, because we don't have control over the what we're doing a lot of the time, but we've always got control over the how we're doing it. And so those small micro moments of, but I just had a moment of laughing at something with a child or with a partner, or I even just smiled, or I even made a cup of tea for, whatever it is, those small ordinary moments, and just that reframe of, but that is actually more than just surviving. I'm doing something that is actually underneath still really valuable.
I'm making time for fun. I know, why did parenting get so serious? It's supposed to be fun. And sometimes just, I don't know, if things are really intense or something, I just put the TV on and we put a dance song on and everyone starts dancing, and it's, the big ones are too cool, but then eventually it kind of like creeps out onto them with the little ones like dancing, and 5 minutes and everyone's up dancing, you're having a good time, and it's like we didn't really have to spend any money, we're at home, and you can really sort of change how you feel when you feel like you're drowning in washing or cooking or all of those things.
It's so true. That playfulness it's a big one, because we're not going to feel it when we have those extreme levels of stress, exhaustion or burnout. And again, if we reach for 10 out of 10 playfulness, it's just not going to happen. Exactly. So those really small, okay, but maybe I can do 1 or 2 or 3 out of 10, which it might just be that. And then, as you say, the magic in that is maybe that does actually start to shift a little bit of how I'm feeling at the same time.
Oh, Carrie, well, thank you so much for joining us on the Expert Guide to Parenthood podcast today. We have a library of experts and episodes, everything from when you're first planning a baby all the way through to the parenting years. And Carrie has got numerous episodes with us, so please do check those out.
A huge thanks to Mistela for sponsoring this episode. Mistela empowers parents throughout their parenting journey with education and honest conversations from pregnancy and beyond. Mistela has plenty of parenting articles and resources on their website. Visit mistela.com.au. Mistela is our family's favourite.
Never forget, parents, you've got this.
Join a Parents You've Got This masterclass today to be prepared, excited and educated for pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood. Visit www.parentsyou'vegotthis.com.au and sign up for a masterclass today.
The information provided in this podcast is general in nature and is intended to support, not replace, a discussion with your doctor or healthcare professional. Parents You've Got This take no responsibility for any medical decisions made by individuals based on the information provided in this podcast.